What's going on, boys and girls? It's Shane with Blacktop Racing here, and we are at the WDCR event number 2. It is afternoon runs. You can see the herd that was just going up the hill, and that is the novice walk. So yeah, we're gonna go ahead and get this course walk going. So unlike the other 2 videos where the start was actually up there, we're actually starting here. And we're finishing up there actually. So, all right, so as we pull up, we're gonna spot out the first thing that we need to do. So let's just check out our first few steps here. So we have a little lane change going to a right-hander, and then it's gonna be coming down this hill. So we're gonna go ahead and walk after I kind of spot out where we wanna go, which is down the hill, then the left-hander. So first things first. As I pull up, obviously I want to try and line up the car. There's actually no cones here guiding us to not go straight up the hill. So I'm actually going to point straight up the hill. Point right here because I want to get a nice start going up. So let's go. All right, so remember, when you're walking the course, don't walk towards that cone because your car isn't going to be right there as far as you in the car. Get your visuals down as soon as you get going. So here's just a lane change. We're just worrying about, it doesn't really matter as far as backsiding this cone or that cone, quite honestly, because the next element is really a right-hander. So just get through this gap. On the right-hander, what I'm looking for, even as we're walking the course, is that cone there. Is that cone telling me that I have to pinch in, or is this going to be a continuous sweeper? So since it's a continuous sweeper, because it's telling me that the car needs to be on the left side, I'm going to take this approach here, where I'm taking a little bit wider line on approach. And the reason why I'm doing this, I'm trying to soften up my angle here. If I'm over here on the right, then I'm actually making this a 90-degree turn, and I'm going to be carrying some speed up that hill. We want to enter it so that we're kind of backsiding this cone here is what I'm looking at going through this gap. So as I'm coming around, I'm actually eyeing out not that cone because we know it's a sweeper. It's actually this cone right here, which tells me that I have to pinch in. I just have to not get too crazy on that one. So here, because of my angle, I'm already shooting through here with some nice speed. It is banked, so working in my favor, but it is wet, so I'm gonna lose traction here as I wanna roll on the throttle. So from here, what I wanna do is kinda, actually I don't even have to add this much distance. I can just sweep this all the way around here. We just have to be mindful of some of the wet spots. I was hoping to do a rain video, but unfortunately, which will cut even more distance, but that's not the case today. So as you sweep this around, you can actually see that this is a gap. This is just a little wiggle through, so that isn't a problem at all. You just kind of get through here, and some people are going to continuously go down the hill. So you're going to start your approach going down the hill, but then you're going to angle to make this softer because you have to work your way up the hill. And so, and then there's a slalom. So as I'm coming here, I'm gonna get close on this cone, carry as much speed as I can in a controlled fashion. And as I'm coming down here, it's only that cone that's telling me where to turn, and then there's another cone all the way over there. So what I'm doing, I'm gonna bring the car as close as possible to this cone just because I wanna soften up this angle and not make it just a direct 90-degree turn. So I wanna do some of my turning out here, and so that way I'm gonna try and punt this cone since I have this much distance away from it and start rolling on the gas. So I'm gonna use the understeer in my favor, so that, and knowing that, hey, I'm going downhill, off camber is gonna push me off kind of where I wanna be actually. So just keep at, you're gonna add some distance because we can't necessarily get too tight on this. Looking ahead, it looks like we don't want to take a too wide of a line just yet. Let's see this here. Yeah, so this line is actually good because these cones are offset. I haven't walked the course yet. So you don't want to take a super wide, tight line because then you'll be too shallow here. If you do want to take a tight line, then make sure that between that cone and here, you get over just a little bit. So you can start off tight in the beginning as soon as you start your turn, but make sure you add a little bit of distance here so you can wrap around this cone. I'm gonna wrap around this cone, but I can still carry some speed. Don't try to go out to the grate too much, because then you're fighting back to get on that cone. So as we're going through here, I'm gonna kind of spot out my next element. My next element is that cone there. It's telling me that I have to put the car on the left side. So as I'm coming around a sweeper, I'm actually going to try and make this a nice arc. So I'm going to carry some speed. I'm going to go out wide just a little bit, so that way I can soften up this left-hand turn. I'm going to arc this all the way around. So as I'm arcing this, I'm gonna try and get on this cone, these double cones right here. I'm gonna try and come around this pretty tight. So because of your speed, it's gonna push you out just a little bit. And then you gotta make sure that you backside that cone. So if you actually get this angle correctly, you're not fighting too much to get on the backside of this cone. That will set you up for the 4-cone slalom, which is actually 5, but the 5th one's offset all the way up there. Okay, so you don't necessarily want to be all the way over here, because then you're fighting and you can't get on the gas to get up the hill. So I would suggest that you worry about your position here. This is actually a key corner that's going to dictate your speed all the way up this hill. So make sure you nail that by adding some distance, backsiding that cone, and then you'll get a nice run. It'll feel slower depending on grip levels, but the other thing that you're keeping in mind right now are these wet spots. Because if you try to carry too much speed, a nice sweeping line, you're actually going to lose it. You're going to have to check up anyway. All right, so by the looks of this is just a usual slalom. So backside the first cone, get through here. Don't know if you noticed this, but there's a little rise right before that 3rd cone. So the car is going to get a little light, and then there's also some water seepage because it rained earlier this morning. So if that stays there, keep in mind that trying to throttle through, you're going to get a little sideways. Okay, so just stay disciplined. If you see some glare, just make sure that you're not full throttle with any angle of the steering wheel. All right, so right here is actually where I want to start throttling through. So this cone, between this cone and that cone right there, I'm just trying to get through them for the most part. There's actually a bigger gap from this cone, from that cone to that cone. But I still want to stay disciplined. I'm going to throttle through, but still try, actually, no, don't throttle through too much because there's some bumps here. So just keep pace, and then you're going to start throttling through here. The reason why I'm saying that is because as I'm walking, there's actually bumps here. So that's going to throw off your footing on the rear end of your car. So continue to treat this like a slalom, but we're just trying to get through this particular gap. As we approach this uphill, we already know that we're gonna have to make a right turn. So we're gonna set up for that. So the first things first, what am I going to look for? I'm gonna look for where exactly the next bend is, which is a pointer there. And then I have to get over here and be on the left side of that wall. So as I come around, I know that cone, that angle is so far off, so I'm gonna try and cut some distance in here and get close to this cone. And actually, since this corner is kind of slow, I'm going to try and do a pivot before I get to that cone. So I'm gonna bring it out. And this one I may change a little bit as far as how I'm driving, just to see how much grip I can carry. But the thing is, where this crests, the car unloads. So what I'm thinking is as soon as you approach that cone, get tight in here, carry as much speed as you can, and then here, just try to get the car pivoted. But you have to do your turn early because of that crest, so try to aim at this cone and try to hit it, but you're not going to because of the crest and the speed that you're carrying. So as you come around, You can actually wash out a little bit. That's not a problem because you have some time to recover. I was out here earlier, so I know that once I get through this cone and make the left, there's a hard right-hander from that point going down the hill. Okay, so as soon as I come around here, I actually want to carry some speed. So depending on how many G's I'm holding, can I get the car back? So just a slight breathe, just to get the car over, and then I'm gonna go ahead and make this a nice straightaway. If you're trying to carry too much speed from there for whatever reason, you don't want to end up all the way out here. And you don't want to short this turn at all. You want to make sure, as you can see my angle coming around, you want to make sure that you're at least in here, so that way your car can go up the hill full throttle, no problem. You should honestly be full throttle from midway point between that cone and this wall, if you do it right. So on this one, as we're climbing up the hill, we're gonna have to make a big judgment. The next cone, as we're looking ahead, is actually a pointer. So it's a pincher cone as we're approaching it. And then further down the hill, we have just a slalom and then a hard left. But I'm worried about that double pointer since it's pinching me. So I'm gonna add a little bit of distance up here, soften this cone and start diving in. It's banked, but let's start diving in because we're gonna have carrying some good speed in here, so watch your braking approaching this, but you don't have to slow down the car too much. You wanna still carry some speed since it's drying, and you can actually carry this out to here. If you carry it out to here, this is just a simple lane change, and you're gonna be tight on that pivot cone at the bottom anyway, because the next turn is a left-hander. So that you already pointed out my pivot cone, that's my next cone that I'm focused on going up the hill. So just squeezing myself through here. And I'm gonna brake early because I'm going downhill. So since I'm going downhill, all this gets really wonky for us, and we wanna make sure that we take a nice tight line around here. So if I do a midline, that's probably as much as I'm gonna go, is probably right here. So not necessarily backsiding that cone, but I'm gonna try, since I'm braking early, just get in position to soften up this left-hand turn. Hug this guy, come down the hill, and you can see that this is a sharp turn. It's almost a 180. Come down, and then try to hit this cone, try to hug this cone. There's no point in adding a bunch of distance, but the car is gonna naturally wash down. All right, so right here, I'm okay with adding some distance and momentum right here because our next element is a big right-hander sweeper. So one thing for sure that you have to worry about is this. If this still stays wet, I'm actually going to try and slow down the car even more in that area and then come straight up the hill as possible. Here, if you're trying to carry too much speed, the fronts and the rears are gonna get wet. You're gonna wash out all the way over here realistically, or almost spin. So if it stays dry, then I'll carry some speed here, bring the car over, and then this is a nice high speed, or higher speed, getting through this gap. So you'll notice that as I'm taking this midline out here, I'm looking ahead and I'm seeing what's coming up next. It's a pointer down there telling me to turn right, but I can carry all this speed out, full throttling it up. And what I'm trying to look for is, all right, I got all this daylight, I'm gonna be happy, I got the car pointed straight. What the heck is coming up next, folks? So the next one is actually a pincher cone right there. So because of that pinch, I'm gonna judge the angle from this cone over there on my walk, so that way I can get an idea of how much to brake. So I'm going to get on over a little bit to make this and carry as much speed as possible. You can see that there's only one gate, so you can add some distance over here to make this a little softer. Now keep in mind that if nobody's taking your thought that they're actually, it's going to be pretty dirty out here. But I'm going to actually go out a little wide since it's dry right now. I'm going to be braking early, so that way I can wrap around this cone and have a nice wide open throttle. Now realistically, I'm going to be sweeping this and probably be over here realistically, because I have such a long run between this cone and the other one that I can recover. So I'm going to carry some speed. I'm looking at what's next. Obviously, we're on the right side of this cone, have to be on the left of that. But what's next? We're looking ahead to see what we got to do. So there's a pincher cone even over there. So just got to make sure that once we get in this gap, we can position the car similar, just like that same turn, but just a little bit tighter to make, actually it's not tighter, it's about the same angle. So we're adding some distance over here, so that way we can backside this cone and continuously carry some speed. Now, the part that's going to get you is that all that was dry so far, but now it's getting into the wet stuff. So you don't want to continuously be turning in the wet stuff. You want to get all your turning done there. So off of your run one, gauge the grip levels and notice that this stuff is gonna just basically slow you down. So do all your turning up there, so that way you can have a cleaner approach going towards the grass. As we're coming down here, this is a pretty quick section actually, and it's leading up to the finish. So this is just a lane change. Then we got the left-hander going into the finish. You can see that right there. So what we're gonna do is just gap this in. We're eyeing out that cone as far as the angle where we gotta go. Going around, I'm gonna stay tight on this cone. I already have my angle because of the approach, as you can see. And then I'm just gonna go ahead, hug this cone, judge my speed. I don't want to go out to this wall per se at this moment, but I'm going to judge my speed. If I have to, that's fine, but I need to make sure that I cut right in on that cone for the finish, because it's a pretty hard angle. But I rather judge some mid-speed and cut distance versus trying to carry a bunch of speed here, going out to the wall, adding a bunch of distance. So a midline, then cut in tight. Try to hit this cone as you're walking, and then what's going to happen is the car is just going to drift out. So as you're rolling the throttle, keep in mind as you're looking ahead, anytime you see glossy, that means the car is going to lose some grip as soon as you run over it. So as I'm coming through here, I'm going to try and finish close to this right side of the wall. Now, if I'm over on that left side, that means I just took that a little, too slow. I can carry more speed. So as soon as you hit here and trip your lights, you're good to go. So that's it, boys and girls. That's my course walk. I'm only doing one as a challenge to make sure that I look ahead and also remember the course very well. So if you have any questions, comments, again, this is how I do it. This is just how I do it. Just after years of experience, really. But they're doing a driver's meeting. Thank you, WDCR. Thank you to the sponsors, Agile Auto. You can check them out on the link below, along with Apex Junkie. Thanks for all the support, guys, for 2017. And I'm signing off. I'll catch you guys later.